Hi, good morning guys. Today's video is, or at least today's work is the 2013 Section A video from Materials Technology Wood, and in this you have to answer 16 questions and all questions are equal marks. Now, just as a background to this, you're on the day in your exam you will have 45 to 50 minutes at the most to answer these questions, and that's as long as you need to spend on it. Remember, you'll have a section B with long questions as well. Okay, so moving on to question 1 from this year. It's going to come up now any minute. Here we go. Okay, so question 1 this year was, using a tick, identify the power tool shown from the list below. So if you look at it, it is certainly not an orbital sander, it is not a jigsaw, it is a router. Now, the router you won't have seen too often in the class, however, it is a tool that is used for putting mouldings on timber. From those that are in tech graphics, you'd use it to put a fillet, which is a curve on the corner of a piece of wood. You can use it for putting chamfers and other even fancier mouldings than that as well. So it's for cutting mouldings, grooves and rebates. A rebate, you know what that is from a joint. Be careful when you're reading these questions that you always check, well, what exactly is asked. So an identify means what is it? What's the tool? Just be careful with the wording used. Now, next question then says, name the woodworking tool shown in the diagram. A lot of you always get this wrong. This is a pinchers. What is it used for? Well, it is used for cutting or snipping tin or wires or materials, metals usually. But it can also be used for removing nails and nail heads from timber. Okay, so you want to take out a nail head, okay, from wood. Number 3 then that year is the good old identify whether the following trees are softwoods or hardwoods. Ash has a hardwood, Norway spruce is a softwood, sycamore is a hardwood, cherry is a hardwood, Scots pine is a softwood. In general, you'll notice with these questions that any of the names, or I suppose except for horse chestnut, but any time you see 2 words as the name, right, that's normally a softwood. Okay, so that might help some of you that find this stuff hard to remember. Okay, now next question we're asked, what's the letters WBP stand for? And it is weather and boil proof. Now there's a clue in this question. It says it's exterior grade plywood. So if it's for the exterior, well, what do we get in the exterior anytime? Well, first of all, exterior is outdoors. We get weather, we get rain. Some people also say that WBP stands for water and boil proof. Look, either answer is perfectly correct. Okay, so weather and boil proof, it is plywood that can be used outdoors effectively, usually more expensive. Okay, next one is the one that a lot of you get wrong. We had this last year during the shutdown or the lockdown, this question, we did a whole topic on it. Anyway, the answer is, well, the correct stages or the correct order is we have an egg, then we have larva, then we have a pupa, and then we have an adult. The larva is the little grub that hatches from the eggs, and it's at that point or that stage in the process that all the damage is done to the timber, because the larva emerges from the egg and it starts eating. Why does it start eating? Because it starts eating the timber in order to grow and to form the adult beetle. And in order to form the adult beetle, it goes from larva and turns into a pupa, which is effectively when it goes to sleep. And then emerges as an adult. Now, question 6, some of you are very good at this one, some of you find this a bit tricky. First of all, we were asked what direction the wheel goes in. So the best way I find of doing this, and I always draw little arrows like I'm drawing now at the moment on the screen or on the paper, just to show, well, okay, if this one's going this way, it must push the gears that way and therefore turn it. It turns it anti-clockwise. Now, the next thing you're asked about is the speed of the gears. Now, if one gear has 12 teeth, the other gear is 24, that means that when the small gear, the 12 teeth gear turns, and it does a 1 full revolution, the 24 teeth gear has only done half a revolution. So therefore, it is going half as fast. So you divide your 35 by 2 and you get 17.5 revolutions per minute, RPM. No harm looking at that word there and remembering it in case you get asked to explain what that is. Now, so large gearing turns, yeah, perfect. Question 7 then, moving on. Okay, so that's just information. Okay, question 7. So, diagram shows a cross section of a tree. We're asked to name the labels, areas labelled A and B. Area A is sapwood. Area B is the heartwood, which you will remember hopefully from your theory. Area A is where all the, I suppose, the live timber is. It's where you'll find literally the sapwood, it's where it's growing from. And area B is the heartwood, is the older area of the tree, the original area. And as a tree gets older and grows out further and further, that heartwood will get bigger. And in terms of the timber we want to use in our projects, ideally heartwood is the best. It's that bit better. All right, diagrams show the leaves of 3 common Irish trees. We'll just go through these because you can learn from your book. First one is oak. Second one there is Scots pine. And then the last one is horse chestnut. Okay, and you can tell from the acorn, you can tell from the chestnut, the Scots pine might be a little bit trickier, but that's where you need to look at the leaves and you need to understand what leaves are involved here. Okay, question 9, easy for those of you that are doing metalwork. Category 1, name the 2 main categories which plastics can be divided. We have thermoplastics and then we have thermosetting. Okay, and thermosetting, you'll often see it's written down as thermosetting plastic, which is, I think, what I wrote here as well. I did, and then I rubbed it out. Thermosetting on its own is enough. Now, which category of plastics can be moulded and remolded many times? Well, I think this one is a fairly obvious one. Thermosetting, look at the word. It's set, it's done, it's finished. It cannot be undone. So our answer for this one that can be remolded any times is thermoplastic. Okay, so thermoplastic for that. Okay, so next question then. It says that the diagram shows a wood holding device, and what's the correct name for this device? I'm just putting a bit of notes up there onto question 9 first before we move on. Once it's set, it's basically just writing down what I already said. Thermoplastic, once it's set. Sorry, thermosetting, once it's set, basically the word set. Okay, so highlight that for yourself there as well. Okay, diagram shows a wood holding device. What is the correct name? This guy, most of you will write clamp, but you won't get full marks because it's not just a clamp, it's a sash clamp. Okay, it has a long, much longer section, much larger clamp than the norm. And then it asks what's it used for. Well, you'll see us using it a lot of the time for edge jointing of boards. You'll nearly always use 2 of them together. And it can also be used for putting together frames and kind of large work. It's for a lot larger work than you would normally use a clamp for. You'd use a sash clamp. Okay, so when drying frames or edge jointing of boards, as I said, keeps everything nice and flat and even. Why would we normally use 2? Because you want to keep an even pressure across the project if it's a framework, or if it's an edge jointing, or when you're trying to create an extra a piece of timber that's that bit wider. Okay, so and then what does it do? It holds it together while that piece is drying, or while the glue is setting. Setting is the correct word really there, not drying. Okay, we're moving on to sharpening. It's been a while since we did this in theory. Diagram shows the cutting edge of a chisel being sharpened on an oil stone, and it asks you then to put them in order. Okay, so the order is grinding, then oil honing, which is actually the sharpening bit, and then burr removal. Now, what does grinding do? Grinding takes off the top layer of the chisel. So if you have a damaged chisel, or there's a notch or a little bit of damage at the top of the chisel, you will grind it in order to bring it down, or to take that damage off it. Then you will go to your oil stone and you will do oil honing or sharpening on the oil stone, which is in order to generate an edge. And then you will remove the burr. What is the burr? The burr is the little thin section of material that is always generated at the tip of the chisel from oil honing, from sharpening. And in order to do it, you will return the chisel over onto its flat edge and you will just remove that burr by moving it across the top of the oil stone. Now, Okay, so I'm just adding those notes there. So yeah, grinding is done as if the edge is damaged. Oil honing is to put an edge on the chisel, and as we said there, then burr removal is just to take off that little tiny little bit of chisel, tiny bit of metal that will appear at the top of the chisel. And without burr removal, your chisel is not sharp and essentially unusable. Okay, next part of the exam paper asks us about the lathe. I told you over and over that you'll need to know the parts of the lathe because it comes up quite often. So it says name the parts of woodworking lathe. So A, if you'll remember, is the headstock. It's the business end of the lathe. It's where all the stuff goes on. It's where you turn your piece from. At least the machine turns the wood for you so you can turn the turning. Part B then is the tool rest. It's where we rest the chisel or the gouge in order to create the shape that you're trying to create on the lathe. So tool rest there, it's a safety thing as well as something that keeps it straight and accurate. And then part C is our center. Now it could be a live center or it could be a dead center, or there's a few other ones as well. The one we have on our lathe in the woodwork room is a live center, so that'll do fine for us. Now this is the one you got wrong at Christmas in your test. Name the woodworking machine shown in the diagram. Okay, this is not a bandsaw, this is a scroll saw, okay? And it says, what's the function of the plastic tubing labelled A in the diagram? Well, normally that blows out air, so it keeps the dust that you're generating from the timber off the table of the saw. Okay, so it blows it away in order for you to be able to see what you're doing, so it's a safety thing really. So keeps the table clear of sawdust and just blows that off there. And when I say table in this case, I mean that part of the saw that's flat that the timber sits on top of. We call that the table. Now, next thing is, when converting timber, the natural edge is often left on boards to give a more rustic look. And what's the correct name? You just got to learn this one off, lads. It comes up a lot. It's called waney edge. W-A-N-E-Y. Waney edge. Okay, so just learn it off. And then it asks you for one method of timber conversion. So we have three of those. We have through and through sawing. We have radial sawing, which I haven't written in there yet, and we have tangential sawing. Okay, so we've just learned those, and chances are, even if that question doesn't come up as a short question, you will get a question on conversion in your section B in the long part of the paper. Okay, conversion or often seasoning, they're the two that tend to appear quite a lot. Okay, name the type of hinge. We've had this from last year. This is a butt hinge. Relatively simple hinge. Not very pretty, or at least the one they're showing us there is not very pretty. Yes, you can get more decorative ones. But yeah, that's what it is. Where would this type of hinge normally be used? We'd have it on doors or boxes or presses, that kind of thing. Okay, diagram shows a 3-pin plug. Again, we had this last year at the end of the year during lockdown. We did a sheet on plugs and the different parts. So diagram shows the wiring terminals. So we're asked to indicate the neutral. So our neutral is down there, but while I'm at it, what colour is neutral? The wire will always be blue. The next pin then at the right hand side will always be live, and it is brown. And how do you know the live? The live is always connected to the fuse, because the fuse is there in order to break the circuit in the event of something going wrong. Pin at the top then will always be the earth, and it'll be green and yellow. Okay, so the colour coding there, state the correct colour coding for the wire connected to the neutral terminal. We just had it. It is blue. But also, while you're on this question, I want you to write in the other three as well, as in what are they called. So green and yellow is the earth, and the brown will always be the live. Okay. And remember, it's brown because of colour blindness, not red. Okay, diagram shows the incomplete exploded isometric sketch of a box dovetail joint. Now, some of you are very good at these, others not so much. To be honest, you're just completing what's there. And and I know I'm reading again what it says in the question, but you're getting your ruler, you're getting out your pencil, and you are drawing in the lines that you're missing. But if you actually look at the question, they have the start of almost every line in there for you. So in order to complete it, you just continue those lines. So I'm there working my way through it, just adding in those lines, adding in the detail, looking at it, trying to figure out, well, how am I going to manage this? How's this going to look okay? Actually, I fixed a few bits here now, so I just let it play, and you can watch how it goes together. I suppose one thing to be careful of, and I've seen you doing this in tests before, it's a dovetail joint. The examiner is expecting to see angled lines. He's expecting to see those tails. It's not a finger joint. It's not straight lines. It's not straight edges. Okay. Okay, so there's our lines finally gone in. It took a while. Just while we're on it, this, and actually I wrote that in wrong, I wrote in dovetails. I should have wrote tails. That side or that section of the piece is called tails. So it's the section where you have the wider section. And the opposite side then, they're called the pins. So we have the tails and we have the pins. And just look, it's completing a sketch. So I added in a little bit of detail stuff that you're able to do, just to make it look that little bit better. Okay, so you're well able to sketch, you're well able to add colour. Why not add it to this? Alright, so that is our box dovetail joint. We're coming close now to the end. Question 19. Term dry rot refers to decay caused by a certain species of fungi which attack wood. Name any such species of fungus. Now, you won't have come across this word, so we're going to learn it now. We're going to learn it today. It might have been in that set of study we did last year on diseases and defects in the timber, but I can't remember whether we did it or not, so let's go through it. It's called the Merulius lacrymans, Merulius Lacrymans, right? And that is effectively dry rot. Okay. Now, what do we need? Or, well, we don't need it, we don't want it at all, but what has to be there in order for dry rot to occur, to develop? There must be stagnant air, so the air cannot be moving, so there's poor ventilation. Okay, stagnant air means poor ventilation. And then number 3, thing that you need or that you would have, it usually occurs in a wet area, so you have moisture, or it could be if the area is warm. Okay, so if you have stagnant air, poor ventilation, if there's moisture present, if the air is warm, and of course the spores for the actual rot needs to be there as well. Okay, last question. Now this some of you find very tricky to do, so I try to make it as clear as I can here, and fit it onto the screen and so on. So the first part, and okay, so what I tried to do here was I tried to shade in, and I think this is what you should do inside the exam as well. When you're not sure which piece it's talking about, okay, highlight it or put colour on it, or show something like that, because then it's easier to identify. So the first part, and I'm finding it difficult now to see the question, they're asking us, I think it was the size of the base. Yes, it was the size, and there was a size missing, and the size or dimension that was missing for the base was 200. So if you look at what you're given, they've already told us it's 300, they've already told us it's 12, so the dimension that's missing, and remember it's 3D, 3 dimensions, is 200. Okay, so that was for the base. And again, by highlighting it there, well, it'll help you learn it, but you can also do the same thing in the test. Shade it in. Next thing they asked us for was the long horizontal rail, I think they called it. Again, highlighting that, looking at it, looking at the numbers we've already been given. So it told us already that it was 300 long, and the dimension we're missing is that height down there at the end, 45. And again, it's already 12 millimeters thick, that's already written in. So the clue here, or I suppose the point of this question, is to look at what they've already given you. Next one they're missing a section for is that short horizontal rail, I think is what they call it. I'm not able to see the question here now this minute, so it's harder to narrate. But anyway, so I think it's the short one. Yes, that's the one I'm highlighting. So the measurement we're missing is 160. Now, a lot of you will have gone in there and written in 136. And you'll wonder then why you're wrong. And the reason 136 is wrong is if you look at the dimension lines, that's to the inside of the joint, okay? So if it's to the inside of the joint, I still have to add on the thickness of the two long horizontals. So that's adding 12 and it's adding 12 again. So my result then is my 160. So be careful of that. There'll be at least one of those measurements in your test as well that has that kind of issue, or that will happen in. So 160 is the answer there. Now, the next piece they asked us for, and again, I can't see some of the question. Which bit was it? Oh, they asked us for a number, yes. They asked us how many of the short horizontal piece, or short verticals, I think they called them. But those pieces anyway that I'm highlighting there in blue, how many of them do we need? We only need 2 of those. Okay, so the answer there is 2. Because there's 2 long ones and there's 2 shorter ones in order to generate that angle at the top of the project or top of the item. And then the last part was about the roof. Now, this one is a funny one, because when you look at it first, it doesn't actually tell you how wide the piece is. It tells you it's 300 at one side. It doesn't give you the other dimension because it's angled. It's one you'd have to calculate and work out. But yes, they actually, when I look down at the cutting list, they already have that worked out for us. They've already told us that it is 240 millimeters wide. So if that's 240 and I look at the piece and I can see that the 300 is a longer side, the one that's missing is 300. And that's what should complete that question there. Okay. And I think that is the end then of our questions, or did I leave one out? Yeah, that's it. So booklet is the end, handed up at the end of the examination. All right, so guys, fill that in for yourselves and learn from it. Thank you.